Wonderful. Thanks so much, Dina, for the very kind introduction. It's really a pleasure to welcome you all today. And I think you've been quite brave at accepting this challenge of understanding two topics that are quite neglected in the field of human rights and the environment: energy justice and energy storage. I'm devoting my academic postdoc to this topic as a Marie Curie Fellowship with the European Commission. But I'm also, since yesterday, walking the walk of renewable energy investment and deployment as a manager at Smart Energy, a Swiss company developing and investing in clean energy, including in renewable energy storage. So some may consider energy as a simple technological issue, and we can understand that some decades ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, we would not have had conversations on barrels and energy justice. But energy raises substantial ethical problems and legal policy and strategic questions, and at times even paradoxes. Plus, in the statutes of electric utilities, there is a principle usually to pursue just and reasonable outcomes, but there's very little knowledge on how utilities are actually doing that, or control on what this entails. So we know there is a benefit in empowering approaches. We can think of energy communities, which are a staple of energy justice. But still, what are energy communities across jurisdictions, and what is green and just in energy communities? We can see still inequities across the energy initiatives, even for clean energy. So with this lecture, I really hope to provide you with robust stance on the academics as well as the practice of energy storage as a potential springboard for energy justice. So we will span from the clean tech physics of storage. It will be limited, don't worry, not really starting from the Big Bang theory, and then getting to the actual deployment of storage for justice. So here you see the picture of an energy justice community. So I wanted to give you the theory of what is groundbreaking also when it comes to the technology, because technology counts and makes it very different for communities to be able even to afford clean energy. So we will talk about devices like batteries, green hydrogen, all the new technology storing energy. But then we will also understand what actually energy justice means also in your experience. So we will identify positive pathways also through case studies. You may also be aware, and this is just a conclusive remark on why this topic is important, that the G20 just ended this weekend, and it concluded with the agreement to pursue triple renewable energy capacity, including through storage, as based on the International Renewable Energy Agency analysis. So IRENA is really the UN of renewable energy when it comes to toolkits and programs for both the companies and states. So this means that we need investments of over $4 trillion per year. This is really a lot. This is also why the case studies, that are 3, will focus on access to finance. But first of all, I would like to ask you what energy justice is. So if Dina is so kind to launch the poll, that would be wonderful. Maybe we cannot, yes. Can you see it?
I think we can see it. I mean, it looks, you can see it in the poll.
Oh, yes, wonderful. Wonderful. So we're seeing energy justice in terms of policy making, and now pluralizing the energy landscape is also gaining ground. So including prosumers and least representative communities, and then energy justice, referring to the goal of achieving both social and economic participation in the energy system, while remediating social, economic, and health burdens. So this last option really won. And this is wonderful because we will really dwell on this. So I will end the poll here and share results. I think you can see it. So there is no right and wrong answer, because actually all of these definitions are correct. So Dina, if it's possible also to turn the poll into multiple choices so that we can take the poll again later on and see, whether we understood why all different definitions are correct, because now you could not really tick all of them, and I'm very happy that we can start our conversation focusing on each one of these definitions. So let me share the starting ground for the first definition that you had before. So it really is about policymaking to provide all citizens with access to safe, affordable, and sustainable energy. And this springs from the idea of different kinds of justice approaches, so distributional, procedural, and even recognition aspects for energy justice. The approach is based on law and philosophy, and you can look for several articles by Macaulay and others. But a sectoral approach springs from a different understanding, just the idea that we need to pluralize the energy system by focusing on some communities, for example, affected communities of color, but also gender, such as women, because we know that, for example, in the European Union, women are disproportionately impacted by energy poverty, or consumers, so prosumers, that produce, store, and share renewable energy and can organize also in renewable energy communities. Then the role of courts is also interesting, and I will dwell more on this because it may be closer to our own experience. And the last definition that won our poll is based more on governance and a systemic approach for applying energy justice to practice. So shifting from theory to practice. On the role of courts, you may have already encountered this article by, Efron from 2021. Efron examines 100 cases decided by national courts from countries around the world, both the global south and the global north. The cases were decided since the Paris Agreement. So these are most recent cases that we can see also in climate litigation charts from 2015 on. One of the cases is Demanda Generaciones Futuras from Colombia, for example. So in the article, the author analyzes the types of injustices at stake. So you can see that the types of injustices are in the inner circle of procedural, restorative, distributive, recognition, and cosmopolitan, considering cosmopolitan the fact that we all are energy citizens and we're all connected because of the climate system. So beyond this, the response of national courts is analyzed through specific human rights that are in a way dissected from the cases and are represented by the outer circle of energy justice in the figures of air, health, life, subsistence, water, the environment, security, fair trial, culture, property, and dignity, which is a very crucial understanding of energy justice within human rights theory. So the idea is that we can analyze further court cases through the energy justice circle. But the only shortcoming with this analysis is that we don't really have a lot of tools in our hands to affect policymaking. So this is why I'm very pleased that you selected the last definition, because it starts another conversation on really how to impact energy justice legislation through a scorecard. So Baker and others developed a scorecard in the workbook on energy justice in 2019. So the goal is really to focus on frontline communities to remediate energy justice from the past, and then center on all communities to make energy more affordable, cleaner, and also democratically managed. So democratizing energy systems, which are very centralized and that are quite uncontrollable by energy consumers like us, is the key. But let us get now to storage. What do you think energy storage is? If Dina can launch the poll, that would be wonderful. Thank you. So is it green?
We can view it, yeah.
Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes, yes, all clear.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nicholas. Right, so is it green hydrogen, e-fuels, flywheels? This is really a technological question. And again, just go with your gut feeling, you know, what you've heard about and what you believe can be even the future of energy storage. Maybe you know there is a lot about batteries now, but how about other types of technology? So now we are seeing batteries. That's really the dominant energy storage technology so far. Pumped hydro is the first one that developed. If we really don't go back to batteries, like over 3,000 years ago, the first battery that was found in Mesopotamia. But that's another type of battery. Of course, it's not lithium ion as today's batteries. So we're seeing very nicely understood concepts here. No one is looking for flywheels and compressed air. It just sounds like a revolution, probably another type of world than the one that we live now. You know, how can you liquefy air? So I can see we have 70% responses. Let's send the poll and share results. Okay, so batteries and pumped hydro, that's very well chosen, because these are the main technologies now to store energy. But in principle, all these technologies can be chosen. So again, Dina, if you can make the poll multiple choice for later on, so that we internalize this understanding of the choice of technology we have in front. by 2030 already, there can be technological and commercial maturity of green hydrogen. And then all these technologies are expected to really store in seasonal and in terms of long-term storage by 2050. So energy storage is a crucial piece of decarbonization because it enables the use of intermittent energy, which means variable energy by storing electricity and making it available when it's needed the most. So it's a balance. You can really think of it as a balance. We know that at times the grid is congested. There's too much solar power because the sun is shining. And then by storing electricity, you can balance and stabilize the grid. But then you can give back this energy by in the forms of electricity by giving it back when, for example, the sun is not shining anymore, but people still need to make dinner. So energy storage can really substitute natural gas plants for peak load. So the load that is necessary when demand of electricity is very, very high. So in this way, it can decarbonize the grid, but it can also decarbonize off-grid networks. So let's think of neighbors sharing solar power, storing electricity, and then sharing it off-grid. This is possible and is happening, especially in renewable energy communities across the world. So just by naming these examples, we can see how storage can dramatically enhance energy justice because it increases the reliability of renewable energy sources. A couple of years ago when the energy price crisis started in Europe, the idea was that wind and solar makes the grid very unreliable. And that's why we needed more natural gas plants. But this is not really the answer. That makes Europe just more dependent on gas, and especially on countries that are exporters and are located outside of the European Union. So the real just transition away from gas plants is through storage, as the Irina also mentions. So let us get to the technology. You may be aware of green hydrogen for decarbonizing hard-to-abate sectors, and not only, but starting with hard-to-abate sectors. And then e-fuels are also derived from hydrogen, and these are sustainable alternative fuels. So if you need to visualize it for the future, think of a plane running on clean fuels instead of gasoline. And you can think of this as the plane of the future, and it can be the near future because they're already building these planes that can really decrease the kind of controversy and animosity about flying. So flywheels harness mechanical energy. No one chose it, and it's a matter of why we don't communicate on technology concerning flywheels. But I would really like to dwell more on thermal and batteries. So thermal storage is, for example, stones. It's a very lower tech alternative than batteries, but stones can collect heat in a solid. So there is an example of stones that can store heat and then transform it into electricity, for example, in soapstones and granites from Tanzania. This is interesting because many of these resources are located in the global south. So we also need an energy justice approach to include energy communities in the global south so that they can harness their own resources for good. Batteries and pumped hydro. I told you this is really the dominant technology for, these are the dominant technologies for storing energy. Unfortunately, grid operators are really focusing on these only in the short term. I'm thinking of the Italian grid operator, which is the first in Europe. But in general, batteries are a larger part of chemical, electrochemical, and electrical storage. So batteries and pumped hydro belong to the same type of storage. Pumped hydro is also called the old goat in the sense that it's the classical dam, entailing notorious ecosystem effects, but also some risk of catastrophic failure is still what we have as a legacy from the last century. But batteries are the hottest energy storage technology in town. We know it's not just electric vehicles, but it's really an energy resource that is the fast growing one in California, for example, and we see also across utility scale energy storage in the United States and in China, in Europe. Batteries are growing faster than any other technology. But if we have so many batteries, and in principle, energy storage is very good for energy justice, why aren't we getting more participation in energy systems through batteries? So I would like to give you some more context about this. A colleague wrote something provocative on batteries being the Barbie on today's Barbie versus Oppenheimer climate tech possibilities. So batteries are en vogue. They are apparently inoffensive. They don't really spark a big debate where we know we need to go by with batteries. But we also know their value chain is not sustainable now due to geopolitical dependencies, as well as very expensive and depletable critical raw materials. So we also have one more problem. Elon Musk put it quite simply some months ago: industrial capacity. The choke points of batteries is that we don't have enough refining capacity of lithium. Our refining capacity is very high in China, but not elsewhere. So commodity prices is still a problem, even if maybe it's not a problem for Musk, but it's a problem because the prices of batteries were declining until 2020, but they started rising again, and they're expected to rise also this year. So it's not really making batteries accessible to frontline communities or all communities. We know that it's not that everyone can afford an EV, an electric vehicle. So how can we really turn the tide from theory to practice and seize the energy justice effects of storage? You chose the last definition that was put forward by Professor Shalanda Baker, a lawyer, a law professor, and colleagues. What is very meaningful is that Shalanda Baker is now serving in the Biden administration, and is applying the scorecard of energy justice. So I thought it's even more meaningful to dwell on this scorecard because Shalanda became the director of the Office of Economic Impact and Diversity, and has also a role as secretarial advisor on equity within the U.S. Energy Department. So in this role, Shalanda Baker established an initiative on energy justice you may have heard. It's the Justice 40 initiative that makes available federal investments flow to frontline disadvantaged communities that are called energy communities. So it's a different definition from energy communities in Europe. And these communities are defined as disadvantaged, marginalized, and anyway underserved, also because of existing pollution. So with the IRA from last year, the Inflation Reduction Act, energy storage in this area has been greatly incented. Developers would get investment tax credits just to install systems, and a bonus if they install energy storage systems in these communities. So we can see that she really walked the walk of her theory, and I would like just to look at these different criteria that you can use also in your work in case you need to score some energy justice projects. Because first, you need to look at the process, whether communities are meaningfully included, not just, as a cosmetic touch at the end of a process or just at the beginning to gain views without taking them into account. Then the restoration, is there any way the project remedies prior and present harms? Thirdly, decision-making. How do you make policy part of the decision-making on marginalized communities? And then the benefits. Do you consider the economic, social, and health benefits for marginalized communities? So even economic benefits, so that energy communities are at the center and are not, part of the marketing of big utilities that just want to say, we do energy for the poor and we get the incentives for that. Then at the end, access. Do you think that policy makes energy more accessible and affordable to marginalized communities? So you need also just to check whether you get the final outcome. So here we come to our case studies. You may have gotten the links on the page. As I told you, I really want to focus on access to finance. And the possibility that through access to finance, energy storage can be more accessible and we can be energy citizens instead of just energy consumers. So access to finance through storage is deeply needed, and there are several institutions that are making it easier for frontline communities to harness the energy justice potential of storage. So the ECOWAS case is reported by the IRENA, the International Renewable Energy Agency, and is focused on gender mainstreaming in energy access. So in 2013, the Economic Community of West African States established a program. This is a program specifically on gender mainstreaming and the design of energy projects across West Africa. So the goal is to mainstream gender across jurisdictions in the ECOWAS by 2030, so that more women are part of the solution by becoming even business owners and can have facilitated access to loans at banks. So there is a legal directive mandating gender assessments in energy projects. This was validated by energy regulators in 2017, but of course there is some flexibility for each member state of ECOWAS to determine how much of this directive to integrate in existing legislation. So the project is going very well in the sense that it has also been a blueprint and inspiration for other states. So the East African Regional Center published a gender and sustainability energy analysis some years ago, 5 years ago, and we are just expecting some of the results, midterm results now. So another case is the RESCOOP case. RESCOOP is based in Belgium and represents a lot of energy cooperatives. So over 1.5 million European citizens. An example of affordable clean energy is that one of the cooperatives, and many others, but I wanted to show you this graph, was really able to keep prices low, much lower than the utilities prices, because the cooperative was able to store energy and it was not driven by profit. So the way to go is to really implement renewable energy communities or citizen energy communities, because there are two different types of communities in EU legislation, but also to enable access to public funding. So RESCOOP mentions that there are a lot of EU public funds programs, the Cohesion, Recovery and Resilience Fund, the Just Transition funds, but the problem is that there is nothing earmarked to energy storage. So one should also look at national subsidies, and we saw several subsidies on storage, for example, in Italy, the Netherlands, and Spain. The idea is really also to give concessional loans, so loans with much lower interest rate and guarantees to the risk investments. Also because the credit profile of renewable energy communities or energy cooperatives in general is never matching the credit profile of commercial businesses, and this puts energy communities to a disadvantage. So the GNHRE-UNEP case is again on gender, integrated gender equality into the sector operations of the bank. So the bank said that off-grid renewable energy technologies, for example, solar, photovoltaic with battery storage, have improved opportunities for access to clean energy in remote communities in the Caribbean especially, and that there are gender-related benefits of accessing energy services. So the directive by the bank is for an evidence-based gender perspective in all financing mechanisms within the bank. So this is very important because these banks, including the European investment banks, really mobilize a lot of money. So it's interesting that the GNHRE-UNEP is advocating for differentials against interest rates or even haircuts. So how much you value a collateral for communities or just projects led by women. So this is just part of the picture. Another part of the picture is educational programs, so that you really change the image of women, which, an image of women that are underrepresented in technical, very energy-related fields. So the educational programs, of course, start in the school system, even from elementary school and in textbooks. So this is very interesting, considering women in STEM and that kind of program. So the role of development banks, we saw is very important. This link was not within the reading that I recommended. I just didn't want to overburden you, but I did some research on the Asia Pacific and the potential for storage through green hydrogen to decarbonize small islands. And this is also in line with the Asian Development Bank's energy transition mechanism that develops really marine-based renewable energy ecosystem to make green hydrogen part of existing business models, combining also marine aquaculture, sustainable marine aquaculture, reefs, and ecotourism within the same hydrogen economy. I interviewed also an officer within the ADB, and there is a lot of potential. In case you are from that area, just be in touch with the ADB and you can do a lot. So lastly, we can also play a role integrating more women in the clean energy and sustainable finance verticals, which are some of the most male-dominated verticals, and not just because of an animosity between women and other gender or non-identity identifications, but I would say we need to understand that we need further people within, we need to integrate more professionals in these fields. We need skilled professionals, and this was really emphasized by the European Union, considering the lack of skills in clean energy and energy storage in particular, and the lack of integration of women, because there are no programs for integrating or having a facilitated role for women in clean energy. So I'm part of this initiative, which is an expert network for women in clean energy and sustainable finance. And now this initiative is also being accelerated by IRENA. So in case you have ideas on how to integrate women in the clean energy workforce, just get in touch. And there is a lot to do in the fields, and you don't need to be a woman to be part of this expert network. So I would like to have a poll one more time and let us gauge a little bit what we think, you know, if we still believe that we can, we have all possibilities for energy storage and energy justice in this selection or not. Dina, wonderful, thank you. And then since we have some more time, and sorry that it took quite a bit to go through the nitty-gritty of energy storage and energy justice, I would just like to hear your voice and your views on this. Okay, wonderful. So yeah, we can remember that all these definitions are true, but the last definition is more practical. So thanks for participating in the poll. Again, the result is supporting Shalonda Baker's definition of energy justice. And for the second poll, we can see if we have the same ideas. Thank you so much, Tina. So now, you know, flywheels are also part of the landscape of energy storage in the future. But again, batteries and pumped is the main dominant technology. Thermal storage, we talked about that. That's great. If you have possibilities to be part of energy communities in your local community, just be in touch with them or with RESCOOP in case you are based in Europe. RESCOOP is also keeping connections with other energy communities around the world. So this is great. Thank you so much to all replying and just hearing about our future through energy storage. So just by concluding, what do you think about energy storage for energy justice? If you want to have a say or share your experience.
I will just stop the recording.